we talk about two fantastic single owner sales, which are coming up here at Zacke in Vienna. And both no reserve, both with their dedicated print catalog and a subsequent online sale, all no reserve. The first one is the collection of Jørgen, Illum, Ruben from Copenhagen, and we called it A Dealer's Eye, and it's on September 10, 2026. And the second one is Professor Gerd Kesi, founder of the museum Haus der Völker, and the sale is on September 11, and we called it The World of Gerd Kesi. And now we talk about Jørgen Ruben's sale. I remember when Jørgen contacted me, the first thing you need to know about Jørgen is that he doesn't have a computer, which doesn't make work very easy. And he sent me a few terrible photos with a few minor pieces, and he said something along the lines, I want to sell a few pieces. And then I explained to him that in order for us to acquire something from Denmark, there needs to be a certain volume because, of course, there's cost involved. Rather quickly, I started to realize that this is someone who's been involved in Asian art for a very, very long time. And I said, well, it's been a long time. I haven't been to Denmark anyway. And also where Jørgen lives is at the very tip of the Copenhagen Sound. So this is almost 100 kilometers away from Copenhagen, but it's where all the ships used to enter the Sound. And it's a beautiful landscape. It's absolutely incredible. So I paid him a visit to say hi and look at a few pieces. And it was quite a stunning surprise. Because the first thing that happened is turns out that he was a, I think, semi-professional, if not professional, race driver in his youth. So what was supposed to be an hour trip from Copenhagen airport was more like 20 minutes or so. And we ended up at a place that is really the old Denmark. So you have these houses that are quite large, farmhouses with these huge ridedach. So it's made from
reed.
It's reed. Okay, thank you for that. And it's very, very old. And in there is this, 95% of what was in there is now in here. So we had this conversation and Ruben said, I want to retire and I need to sell all my things. Not all of them, but most of them. We decided to do this as a single owner sale. I was very convinced because it has essentially three parts. One is the Khmer part, which is super strong, because most of the pieces, you will talk about that, came from Adrian Maynard. So back in the days, pre-UNESCO, pre-everything. Jørgen has handled many, many Khmer pieces. The ones he kept are, in many cases, best of class. Several examples I've seen there are frequent subjects, but the quality here is superior to most of what I've seen. And that includes major museums such as the Gibet. The second part then is antiquities with a focus on Egyptian. He had a very good advisor. What was his name?
Jacques Bien.
Jacques Bien, who advised him throughout his career, and he has some really nice bronzes, some really nice reliefs and other things. And the third part then is the Buddhist part, but there's a general part also where he has Japanese art and prints and all kinds of things. But the third major part is Southeast Asian Buddhist art. And here it's interesting because Jørgen has always focused on getting one really good example of one specific culture, like Utong or like Mondvaravati or so. And the examples he kept changing when he thought he had a better one. And so some of them are really outstanding. And even if you look at first sight, you see, okay, this is a few Southeast Asian bronzes, but in fact it's not. They are highly selected and curated. And that's why I think you came up with the idea to call it a dealer's eye. Because what you see throughout this collection is that the pieces have been curated with an exceptional eye. So, and then of course, I asked Jørgen, what do you have about the provenance? So Jørgen came up with this, with his ledger, which is much thicker than that. And the first thing I said to him is, Jørgen, if you're not giving me the original ledger, you need to make copies of it and have them binded, so that we have something that we can work with. I think that's essentially when you started to get involved.
The original 2005 ledger has 74 pages. Each one has the provenance and the acquisition year and Jørgen Ruben's attribution and dating also written in there. It's quite the substantial document. It took a long time for us to get through it all. We were in constant phone conversations with Mr. Ruben, asking him some questions, asking for clarification, and I really feel like we got to know him through this process very well, but it was a real pleasure to work with him.
When you talked to Jørgen, you went through the individual entries in the ledger, and it has these little codes here. So, for instance, what does, there is here HH.
HH is Hans Henningsen, an early mentor.
Okay, and
of Jørgen.
And who is FH?
And FH is Freddy Hansen. He's a legendary Copenhagen dealer. He actually sold a piece to Alan Presenser that we sold a few years ago, a little Buddha.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, and who is OK?
OK is Oliver Klitgaard, who is friend and dealer of the Danish Crown Prince.
You know all these, you know all of them?
Well, LA, of course, is Leo Albrecht.
Okay.
And Sunde is Laurits Sunde.
Okay.
Another legendary Danish dealer.
Okay, and this is all explained here in the catalog, right? Because this is actually key information for our collectors. So
we've tried our very best to make it as clear as possible.
Yeah, so there is a legend here which explains how to look at the entries, and here it also is exactly explained what they mean, line by line, and how we converted them, because actually they're in here at every object. You can see here the entry of the Jørgen Ruben ledger, what used to be the price he was asking in his gallery. So what's the history there? When did he start his first gallery?
His first gallery he opened in Copenhagen, and in the 90s he became active in Brussels, and as under the name of Classic Art.
Okay, so and this is where all these pictures were made, yeah? Because I see here London Gallery, Brussels Gallery, Copenhagen Gallery, so it's all there.
Yeah.
And when did he get acquainted with Adrian Maynard? That was during his London time or earlier?
It was with Hans Henningsen.
Ah, okay.
Who I believe introduced him to Adrian Maynard.
Okay. So this contact went through Hans Henningsen, because Adrian Maynard was with Sotheby's, I think, until 1967.
He was with Sotheby's before Spink?
Before Spink, I think so. Not 100% sure, but I'm quite sure. He took over to Spink, and he also took on an apprentice a couple of years later, who goes by the name of Roger Cavern.
Yeah.
Who's still around, retired. Adrian Maynard, I think, passed away quite
1991.
Okay, 35 years ago. And how did the cataloging go with Jørgen? Was it easy?
It was easy and difficult at the same time. Describing pieces like this is never very difficult, because the pieces speak for themselves.
And you have a lot of comparisons in the market, because they're all straightforward and everybody knows these pieces.
They're classics.
So the actual challenge is to have a really accurate provenance.
Is to get all the details absolutely right. Also with the attributions, as I'm sure you know, with the Khmer temple styles, for example, it can be quite a challenge. And Jørgen and I had quite a few heated discussions over the phone.
Okay.
Whether something belongs to one 10th century temple or another 10th century temple.
So it was actually an intensive conversation you had with him over time.
Absolutely. In several cases, we have gone with different datings or attributions than are recorded in the ledger.
Okay.
These have always been discussed with Jørgen Ruben. Sometimes we had to agree to disagree. Other times one changed the other's mind.
The state of documentation and science has changed since the ledger was first time compiled. That was in 2005.
Yeah.
So that's 21 years ago. And I might argue that science has significantly changed.
Of course.
As in 3,000%. Is there anything else we need to say about the Jørgen Ruben collection that is important, besides the fact that everything is with no reserve? Once again,
I think that's the main thing to point out. Do you have a favorite piece in the sale?
I have a lot of favorites. So first of all, these kneeling pharaohs. I'm really crazy about these. I think
formerly at Bonham's London.
Yes, I love the cuprite and malachite patina on the Egyptian bronzes in general. And when this is so well developed, there is another piece that I really love. Just have to find it. It's this one here. I think this has been terribly undervalued over the years. I think it's been he bought it at Christie's for some 30,000 euros 20 years ago. Ruben said to me when I looked at this piece that he believes this is the daughter of an emperor. It's a very naturalistic depiction, and it's very soft, but also very strong-minded and with a powerful character. And it's quite unusual. So this is from the ancient art. And then, of course, the cover piece, this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one of the group here.
Tsari Bayo.
Yeah, the tossed ones, where there is a couple around. And this one has, I think, over half a meter. Yeah, 57 centimeters, including the small stand here. The figure is probably like 350. It's probably a bit larger than the one we sold for 400,000 at the last FIS sale. You know, there's this saying, an image says more than 1,000 words. And that is so true here. So that's always going to be one of my favorite pieces, not only in this sale. This is just a brilliant piece. And then the variety of Ganeshas, Khmer Ganeshas that are in there. This one and this one.
And then there's that one.
And then there is that one. Yeah, and that gave me a real headache, because to put this at 20 to 40,000 on the market is
Jørgen Ruben's gallery price on this was 950,000 euros.
Yeah,
So
and that's 20 years ago. That's 1.35 million today. And this is a period piece. This is Mondvaravati. This is 8th century, and it stands over 1 meter tall. This is another favorite, by the way. This one here. We had like, I don't know, 20 of these over the last 10 years, for sure.
Yeah.
But we had one very good one, which came from Leonardo Vigorelli.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best so far. The one from Leonardo had a very well intact polish. This one here is more powerful, I would argue, but the surface has more weathering.
That's right.
So that's the question where you want to go. And I've seen it later again, and it's a brilliant head, but this one is also absolutely fantastic. This is another favorite of mine, by the way, this one here. Yeah. Because in the Pakon Chai, some of them are so corroded that you don't really see the silvered finish anymore. This one is, if you're looking for Pakon Chai and you want the 100% bulletproof piece, this is it. Yeah. It has everything. The patina is right, the metallurgy is right, the cracks are right, the silver finish is right. Beautiful. Exceptional. This is 7,500 euro starting price, no reserve.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, no, this is another one here. It's a huge piece.
I also really love, it's so similar to this temple piece.
And this is Shan State 17, maybe 18. It still has the plaque here from the museum. I think that's it. No reserve. A great selection. We have the printed catalog, which has an amazing 114 pieces in the printed catalog. So this is already everything curated by Jørgen Ruben's Dealer's Eye. And then we curated the best 114 pieces from here. But make no mistake, in the online sale, there is fantastic pieces and fantastic deals. And the reason for that is not everything fits in that catalog. And so we're very limited.
But we have some great pieces, like all the Japanese art is online, including gilt lacquered wood figures, Buddhist figures, and some Kamakura bronze figures as well.
I can even tell you what's my favorite piece in the Japanese online sale.
Tell me.
It's the Byobu stopper. I've never seen that before. It's a heavy piece of, it's a bird.
To keep your screen in place.
And you can put the screen in there and it holds the screen tight. Yeah, and I think it's crazy. So check out the online sale as well. And if you want such a catalog, send us an email. You get one free. And if you're bidding, good luck at the auction.